We have a few more people joining us as we go today, but I just want to thank everybody for being on today's webinar and for your interest in learning more about the program. So I actually start out by introducing everyone and having kind of a round robin, but because we have so many people, I'm actually going to skip part of it today, but I will say that we do have a broad range of people from various places. We have folks from Millersville University. We have we have folks from some conservation districts, U.S. Forest Service. We have some consultant groups with us. So we do have a really broad range of people, and it's really exciting to see how broad the iMap program and the audience that it reaches can be. So I do want to just want to know that as we go through the training, I do want to make sure that you guys are able and free to ask questions. So I will incorporate some break times for you guys to ask any questions that you might have. Feel free to do that as we go through. I like to make these interactive as I can. Go ahead and get started. So some of you guys may be familiar with the iMap program already, and some of you might be brand new to it. So I like to start out by just sort of describing what the iMapInvasives program is all about. And so this is sort of a general slide that has that information. And so it's used for various purposes, but it's a GIS-based system that is to document invasive species findings all across Pennsylvania. You can use it to learn about where these locations of invasive species are being found, not only in our state, but also in surrounding states, because we do have a few states nearby that are part of the iMap network as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. It's also used to document control and eradication efforts, so not just where you're finding species, but also the work that people are doing to try to control and get rid of them. It's also used as a way to analyze data and then use that to prioritize survey and treatment efforts. And then that information then, of course, because it's available in a public database, can be used to share that information out, so both the distribution data as well as the management information. And so here on the side, you can see some photos of a water chestnut pool that was done. And so this sort of effort is one where all aspects of this could be documented in the iMap program. So if when you find, invasive species, or in this instance you find water chestnut, you mark it down in what water body you found it in as an observation record. And then these folks are obviously out doing a treatment, a control effort. And so that would be something that you would then be able to document in iMap as well, and then share that out and say, here's this effort that we did, here's the people that were involved, the date that it was done. All that information can be documented. So iMapInvasives 4. Database was designed to be used by various types of people, but you can really break that down and say that it was designed for both citizen scientists as well as natural resource professionals. And so just kind of to further define what we mean by those two categories, some of the folks that we have, our citizen scientists that are a part of, are from schools, folks that are retired but still have an interest in going out and doing work in the field. You also have part of the Master Watershed Steward Program, as well as Master Naturalists and Master Gardeners, and so a handful of volunteers. Those are all people that I would consider to be citizen scientists. We also have folks that are part of the natural resource industry. That would include our state agencies like the Fish and Boat Commission, PA Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. These are all state agencies that would find a use for the iMap program. Nonprofit organizations such as the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy, which is where I work, the Pennsylvania Sea Grant Program is one of our partners. They're also a nonprofit. So there's a lot of folks in that realm too that are using the system, as well as consultants, folks in the academic world. So really, it's a very broad range, and the folks on today's training are a great way to account for that. Talk a little bit about, we are part of a network. Pennsylvania is not the only state that's doing the IMAP program. So currently there is 9 states and 1 Canadian province that is part of the network. And as you can see here on the map, where they're distributed. And so we are hoping to get more states and provinces to become part of our network so that that information that's being tracked in maybe Pennsylvania. Of course, we can see information in New York and Virginia, and so that's really helpful when you can see data that's being tracked in nearby places. And so the more state and provinces we have on board, the more we can do that kind of data analysis. So for Pennsylvania specifically, we became a member of the network in 2013. So just some things to remember when you are using the IMAP program. And again, some folks that are familiar with IMAP know this, but for those of you who haven't used it before, I would stress that you pay close attention to this particular slide. When you're using the IMAP program, please be mindful of what browser you are using. So Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, and Safari are all fine. But for whatever reason, we found that Internet Explorer does not play well with the IMAP program. So if you can, please try not to use Internet Explorer. If you have to, and if it's the only browser that you have access to, make sure that you have the most updated version installed, which I believe is version 11 at this point. Just keep that in mind. I know I've had some folks reach out to me and say that something isn't working, and the first question I ask is, what browser are you using? And 9 times out of 10, they're using Internet Explorer, and that's the cause of the issue. So keep that in mind. A quick thing about who we are and who is operating the iMapInvasives program here in Pennsylvania. Myself and my 2 colleagues are the main people who are in charge of it. So I am the main coordinator of the program. I'm kind of the face of what we see here in Pennsylvania. I do a lot of outreach events and host these trainings, but I couldn't do any of this without the help of Kirsten and Mary. They also have very active roles in IMAP, even though they might be more on the back end of things. They are really crucial in making sure that all of this operates very smoothly. So Kirsten does work with back-end data loading as well as work with our GIS. Mary does a lot of work with our grant funding and our reporting. And so we all are a great team, and we work very well together. So that's just a little bit about the program to get you all started, but the meat and potatoes of this training is getting down to the basics of how to use the program and learning more about it. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about here. So just to give you a general understanding of what the database looks like and some of the tools that it offers, you can see here in this database snapshot. So on the far left-hand side is a category called Enter Data, where you're going to be able to actually go in and submit your observations that you're finding. If you would attend a more advanced training, there would be more options here to submit like assessments, surveys, and treatment type of information. Viewing the map is where you can actually visualize your findings, as well as the management efforts that are documented. This table is basically a list of data, and you can access individual records from the table. You can also access individual records from the map as well. And we will go through some of those examples as we go through the training today. The query and report section is where you're able to filter for specific data that you are interested in viewing. And it's a lot easier to do it with that query and reporting tool that is just on the map or the table. It allows you to really filter for specific information. The right-hand corner is kind of small on the screen. You see the information there on user level, and that's very important because your user level will what user capabilities you have, and that is all dependent on the everyone on today's training will have at least a level. If you don't, then I will be updating that after today. There's also additional tools and capabilities as well in this second snapshot. There is a section for your profile where you can go in and update your contact information. It also keeps track of all of your email alerts that you have set up, as well as the trainings that you've attended. There's also a section for updating your password. I would really encourage everybody to make note of that, to go in and update your password from the one that I've given you so that that will keep your account a little bit more secure. I mentioned the email alerts, so over on the right-hand side is a section called Manage My Alerts, and where you can go in and actually create or deactivate email alerts. And then at the very bottom is called My iMapInvasives Data, and this is a section that's all about you. So this is a section where you can view your data that you've entered or data that you are an observer for, and you can also download information. But please note that depending on what your user level is going to indicate what data you can download. So if you guys have any questions about that later on, please let me know. Are there any questions so far? Okay, we'll keep it along. So one of the most basic parts of the iMap program is the ability to enter your findings of invasive species, and that is, we're going to refer to that from here on out as observation data. And we're going to show you guys how to do that. So observation data is essentially a report of a specific species that's found at a certain place on a specific date. And multiple observations can be made for the same population of species. That all depends on your purposes. So if you're out and you find, like in the example here, Asian clam, and you only want to document, one observation for a large population, that's fine. But if you have a need to report that you found 5 or even more Asian clams, then you can go ahead and document 5 observations. It all kind of depends on what makes the most sense for you to do, depending on how you'd like to track the information. You can choose to enter observations manually, being on a desktop computer, or you can also enter them with our mobile app, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. We also do have the option to do bulk uploading. You have a large data set, and here I'm saying about 75 records or more. You can submit that to me directly, and we will work at kind of massaging that data and getting it ready to be loaded into iMap on the back side. So there's various ways of getting your information into iMap, and you kind of are able to choose what makes the most sense. So in general, the observation information that you're going to enter include photos of the species that you found. It's going to be about who was the observer as well as their organization that they're affiliated with. A project, if there's any, and we'll talk a little bit more about that too. Species that you found, the date that you found it on, and the location that you found it at. I mentioned real quickly that if you find a species that's been planted in a landscaped area that's been purposely cultivated but it's invasive, do not enter that information into iMap, because the purpose of entering data into the program is so that then treatment and further control efforts can happen. And so we're not going to go into someone's yard and treat their calorie pair. I mean, it would be good if it wasn't there, but that's not the idea behind the database. So if you find, Japanese barberry that's been planted in a parking lot, somewhere, don't record that information. Again, that's a cultivated landscape plant that can be there, but again, not something that we want to track in the iMap database. So how to actually enter observation data. So I'm going to kind of show you some screenshots. We're not going to do this live in the database, but you're going to have a good idea of how to go about doing this. So once logged into the program, you're going to click on the far left side where it says Enter Data. The first thing that it's going to want you to do is to add photos. So there's a category that you can choose up to 5 photos that you can include, and there are various categories of photos. So there's a close-up photo, there's an infestation photo, there's a scale category, and then there's some other categories as well. And so you can see here in these example pictures that I have kind of a better idea of what these categories actually mean. So if you look at the infestation photo, you can, you're looking at a large population of Japanese knotweed here, rather than just one single plant. The close-up photo, look at the photos that are called distinguishing features. That's really giving you a much better idea of what that plant looks like if your nose is about ready to touch it. And that's really important because the data that gets submitted to IMAP, we can't get out in the field with you, and so we really rely on good pictures to be able to then confirm your data. So the more close-up photos that you can give us, the better. And that scale photo is really important. You'll notice you can see someone's hands in the picture, and so that's giving you an idea of what to compare it to say, okay, I can get a good idea of the size of what we're looking at here because I have something that I know about the size of what that is. Please try to avoid taking pictures this way, except if you're taking photos of an infestation, because photos, again, they don't really help in confirming the species because you can't make out any of those distinguishing features. So try to avoid taking pictures from a distance. Also, I would encourage you guys to take pictures from various angles, again, for the purpose of being able to really distinguish what it was that you were seeing. So samples are taking pictures from above, from an aerial view, from the side, from underneath. So like if you're looking at a plant, look at the underside of that leaf and take a picture of it that way. Those are some ideas. Be creative and try to look at it from as many angles as you can. So step 2 in creating an observation is selecting the observer. So if it's you, then you would say that you were the observer, but you can also enter data for another person as well, and they would have to be a registered user in order for you to select their name in the program. And if they aren't a registered user, you can send that information directly to me, and I will then add them as a registered user to the database so that you can then give credit to them for being an observer. Step 3 is including data in a project. And so what is a project exactly? So projects in the IMAP program are a way for you to organize your data into a group that can be easily searched for or downloaded. It also provides a really great way for multiple agencies that might be working together to submit and then share data for a common initiative. So data to a project is not a requirement. It's really optional, but sometimes it makes a lot of sense to be able to add data to a project. And so if that's something that you think would make sense for what you're trying to do, please, go ahead and let me know. The administrator is the one that's actually going to create a project. A user by themselves cannot do that, but you would just send me an email and say, Amy, I want to create a project. Here's the title of it. Here's what we're doing, and here's who I want to have access to it. So examples of data that we currently have as projects include data that was part of an invasive species management plan done at the Flight 93 Invasive Species, the Flight 93 National Memorial. We also have data in a project that's been contributed by the Sea Grants Zebra and Quagga Mussel database. And also we just recently entered data from the New York Botanical Garden, and so that is also part of the project as well. So, not a requirement, but sometimes it makes a lot of sense because these are the sorts of things that you want to be able to query for that data all at the same time. And doing that via a project is very easy to do. Okay, step 4 is actually selecting the species that you found. So we have, a lot of species. I think it's over 300 species at this point that we are tracking in the IMAP program. I do make a few quick notes, though. Beware of selecting a reported species by common name. And I say that for a few reasons. So sometimes a single species can be known by several different common names. An example of that is multiflora.
Yeah, probably.
The species is actually known by a bunch of different common names. It's going to be multiflora rose, baby rose, Japanese rose, seven sisters rose, rambler rose, and multiflowered rose. So if you know multiflora rose by different common names and you're looking for it, under that common name, you're not going to find it. But again, really, the best way to do that, if that's the case, is to look under the scientific name, because that often is going to not, there's only going to be one scientific name. Also, sometimes different species can be known by the same common name, and an example of that is Asian carp. So we differentiate the different species of Asian carp by breaking them down and saying silver carp, black carp, bighead carp, grass carp, and also common carp. So reporting on Asian carp, again, you're not going to find that common name in our system. You're going to have to be a little bit more specific to say, well, what kind of carp did you actually find? So again, looking under the scientific name is always going to be your best bet if you know the scientific name. If you have to search by the common name, just keep what I've been saying in mind to make sure you're selecting the right species. 5 is selecting the date that you made your observation on. So when you're actually in the program, you'll notice that you can't actually type the date. You have to navigate the calendar in order to choose that date. And so what you do is you use the arrows on the side, and you can click on the title bar. So you see where it says March 2017. If you click on that title bar, it'll bring up all of the different months in the current year. So if you look on the right-hand side, that's what you see where it says select a date, and you see 2017 and then all the different months. You can also click on that same title bar again and bring up a list of years. So if you're entering older data, like from, 1976, you don't want to navigate the calendar, by date. You want to be able to navigate by years, and so that's how you would do that. So just keep in mind how to navigate the calendar. Don't try to type the date because it's not going to work. Step 6 is identifying where you actually made your observation location at. So there's several ways that you can navigate to where you were. You can enter GPS coordinates, and we have various formats that you can enter those coordinates in. I have the example here as decimal degrees. You can enter an address. So here's the example of the address here at our office in Pittsburgh. You can also type in the name of a managed area, such as a state park. So I give the example of Gifford Pinchot. Or you type in the name of a water body. If you were making an observation that was in a water body, you can also do that as well. So there's several ways that you can navigate to where you made your observation. But once you get to that point, you want to make it as specific as possible. So again, if you can get GPS coordinates when you're out in the field, that's by far the best way to go. But if you aren't able to do that and you can only navigate by a different way, then that's fine as well. Last step in creating your observation is to just review everything that you've done in this summary page. Just make sure everything looks correct, and if it does, then you can go ahead and submit your observation. So one thing to point out is once you've created your record, you've gone through that 7-step process, you're not done yet. So make sure to go back to that record. Now that you've just created it, you can access it via the table on the main navigation page. And you want to go back in and add in some additional information that you couldn't add in that first time around. And so we do have some fields for comments. It can be used to indicate if there was additional people that were with you when you were making your observation. Maybe it's important to note the number of species you observed. So for example, if you found a clam again, and you indicate that you found 23 Asian clams, that would be a great place to document that information at. Just some examples. Again, you can put almost anything in the comments field that might be important to you. Also, site directions and access information is really important to indicate as well. So, just giving a basic idea of how you got to where you were, and if there was any access issues, like there was a gate that you had to get through that might have been locked, if you get permission from a landowner, if it really rough terrain that you had to go through in order to get to where you were. That's all important information to document as well. So if you collected a specimen, there is a section called repository where you can indicate if the specimen was collected, and if so, where is that information, where is that specimen being held in a museum, a herbarium, a botanical garden, etc. And so all that information is able to be recorded. I do want to point out, you'll notice the note underneath the screenshot here that mentions that once you submit your observation record, it's always going to appear as unconfirmed. That is the standard way that the database works, and it's done that for a reason, so that once your observation is in there, it indicates that the administrator needs to go and take a look at it, review it, make sure it looks good. It's been done, it will be confirmed. So to the point that your record has been confirmed, before then, when it's unconfirmed, you can still go in and make edits to your record. But once it's been confirmed, you will not be able to go back in and make any edits to it unless you talk to me and say, Amy, I need to make edits. Can you unconfirm record? Or you can just tell me what the edits are and I can make them for you. But just make note of that. So once your record is confirmed, it will not be editable. So if you guys ever need a quick refresher on how to do everything we just talked about to actually go in and create an observation, we do have a YouTube training video that's available on our website. I encourage you guys to go in and check that out if you ever want to go back and just refresh on how to do that. I just want to quickly talk about how our data is QC'd, because this is something that doesn't get talked about as much as I would like to. And so all the data, all the observations that are submitted to IMAP are QC'd by a species expert before they are confirmed. And also, if it is coming from a trusted source, that data is going to automatically be confirmed. So some examples. So we just recently got some reports of Zealand mud snail in Center County. And these reports, I submitted them to my gastropod expert, Dr. Robert Dillon, down in South Carolina, and he reviewed them and said, yes, this is indeed New Zealand mud snail. You can go ahead and confirm it. So a lot of the plant reports that we get, I'm fortunate to have a lot of coworkers here at the Conservancy that are plant experts, and so a lot of times I'll run the plant records by them and take a look at them and just make sure that everything. So we get a lot of data from the Department of Environmental Protection, and their data is very often sent to the Morris Arboretum in Philadelphia, and their information is QC that way, and we will then receive their information. So just keep in mind that it's a really important part of the iMap program, something we really pride ourselves on, that the data that goes in here can be tested. It's been QC'd, it's been reviewed by an expert. We really take our time to make sure that all the data is good. And that might be something that kind of works against us in a sense, because it takes a little bit longer for us to go through that QC process. Once that data is confirmed, we know it's good, we know it can be trusted, and that's really the heart and soul of why we do what we do. We want to make sure the data is good, it can be trusted. Okay, are there any questions so far? Okay, we will keep moving on. Talk about our mobile app and how to use your smartphone to report your findings of invasive species. The mobile app is quick and really easy. You can report your findings while you're out in the field. You upload your observations when you get back into an area where there's Wi-Fi available. So we'll quickly go through and show you some screenshots of what this looks like. We'll go an example scenario of creating an observation record for Japanese knotweed. A view of what the home page would look like for the app. So to begin reporting your findings, you would download the app, either from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. And then once you have it installed, you're going to open it up on your phone and just look at the instructions that are here that you can see listed here in the white font. And then when you're ready to add an observation, you go and click on that green button that says Add Observation at the very top. So the thing you're going to do is take a photo. Again, it's going to be really similar to the process we just went through. Tap on that icon to open up your phone's camera. Make sure that you take a distinguishing photo of the species that you're looking at. The thing that's a little bit different about the app is that you can only take one photo per observation. But there is a way to get around that. You can take more photos with your phone, but not the app. Then you can then upload that information to your observation when you get back to a desktop computer. So with the app itself, you only take one photo per observation, but you can take more photos with your phone if you would like to. So filling in your observation details. So again, similar to what we just talked about, that 7-step process. If you want to add your data to a project, you would select that project name from the drop-down list. And if you have one created, you want to talk to me at a time so we can get that created for you. You're going to select the species that you observe. So again, here we're talking about Japanese knotweed. And the date is going to automatically default to the current day, but that can be updated if you need to have it updated. So your observation location is going to automatically do its own thing because your phone's going to have that built-in GPS capability. Just double check that that location looks correct, and it does, and you can move on to the next step. That's going to be for including comments. And so, again, I would encourage the use of the comment box because that's going to help to make your observation that much more informative, that much more helpful to other people that might be looking at it. So put in the comments would be details about the density of the population that you found, some landmarks that might be nearby, additional observers, et cetera, et cetera. And then your observations. So you're going to save it to a queue of observations on the home page of the app. And it's ready to upload that once you get back in an area that has Wi-Fi. You'll be able to upload that information. So you select all of your various observations, and then you say Upload Selected. So you just want to confirm that that's what you want to do. If everything looks good, say OK. And then note that all of those observations are disappear from your app. They are now in the database itself. Again, once you do that process, you're not done. You will go back in when you get to a desktop computer and additional comments and details like we talked about with the site directions, the site access, repository information, all of those sorts of things. Not required, but it's very helpful if you can add additional details. So for more details on how to actually use the mobile app itself, because this was just a very basic intro, we do more information available if you go to www.iMapInvasives.org and click on our mobile tools page from resources. You'll be able to view a full user manual guide that is available if you have more questions about it. Okay, any questions so far, comments? Okay, so the next part we'll talk about is email alerts. Those alerts are something that I feel a lot of people don't know about, and they're actually a really great tool to use. And so I'm excited that hopefully you guys will find this particular capability really helpful. Alerts are a way that IMAP provides so that you can stay more informed of recent invasive species findings that are reported to the database. You can use them to prioritize your organization's survey and treatment efforts based on the information that you have set up in an alert. And ultimately, we really want you to then use that information to take action and to hopefully prevent the spread of, potentially rare species that, rare invasive species that aren't found very much in Pennsylvania, or even brand new ones that just got reported, because we want to hopefully eliminate them as soon as possible before they have the chance to spread. There's 3 alert types that are available. You can use one or all of them, depending on your needs, and we're going to talk about each one of those. So the first alert type is called a continual alert. This is going to put a focus on any one species or a group of species. You have a particular interest in staying aware of them. What you do is you would choose an area of interest, such as a county, cooperative weed management area, a water body. You could choose all of Pennsylvania. There's a various different options to choose from, more than what I have listed here, but this kind of gives you a good idea of where to start. And then which observations are going to trigger this alert? Continual alert is focused on more recent observations. So anything that was found 1 year ago or sooner is going to trigger a continual alert. It's really the most basic type of alert that we have, and it's really useful to allow you to stay informed of invasive species findings that are important to you specifically. So an example of a continual alert that you can create, where you may alert me every time that hemlock woolly adelgid is found anywhere in Jefferson County. Maybe you live in Jefferson County and you want to keep tabs on that. So here are examples of what you could do for a continual alert. You can alert me every time that your water milfoil is reported anywhere in Pennsylvania. Maybe it's really important for you to keep tabs on where it's being found. You alert me every time black jetbead is reported in or near Erie, because you live in Erie and that's important for you to know about this particular species. You could say alert me every time a rusty crayfish is reported in the Elk Creek Natural Heritage Area. And for those of you who don't know what natural heritage areas are, there's something that the Pennsylvania Natural Heritage Program keeps tabs on. And areas of significance because they are habitat that will really have these rare and endangered species that live in Pennsylvania to have that place where they survive. And it's a really often not habitat you would usually find in very many places, and so they're given a special designation as a natural heritage area, and so you can query on those as well. So that continual alert. The second type of alert is a detection alert. This is going to put a focus on species that are rare or not found yet in Pennsylvania. Just like the continual alert, you're going to choose an area of interest, such as a county, a cooperative weed management area, a water body, or all of Pennsylvania. And continual alert, this also is going to trigger on observations that are a year old or less. So quick note, iMap considers a species as an early detection species if there are 3 or fewer reports for that species in a specified geography. So an example of what that means, wavy-leaf basket grass is still considered an early detection species because right now in the iMap program, we have 2 reports for it in York County at all. And so again, that designation is 3 or fewer reports in a certain geography. So for example, I gave it's 2 reports in York County as being a geography. So that's still considered an early detection species. So the detection alert is really useful in raising a red flag when a new or rare invasive species found in Pennsylvania, which will ultimately help in aiding early detection and rapid response efforts. So again, in that wavy leaf basket grass example, here you could say, alert me if wavy leaf is found in Fayette County, which currently it has not been found in Fayette County. And so if it is, that's going to be a really important thing to know about. So examples of an early detection alert would be something like this plant. It's called policeman's helmet. It's one that we don't have in Pennsylvania yet, so the first report of someone finding it in Pennsylvania would trigger an early detection alert if you had that specific one set up. Aggies mitten crab is another species that we do not have in Pennsylvania. So the first report of someone finding it would trigger an early detection alert. wide-leaf akebia. This is a species that we do have in Pennsylvania, but it's more on the rare side. So we don't have very many findings of it. So any additional reports would trigger, again, an early detection alert. The last type of email alert is called a new to geography alert. A little bit different. It's going to put a focus on a grouping of species. This is not an alert for an individual species. This is always going to be for a grouping of species. And it's also going to put a focus on that are found in an area where they've never been found before. So this is different from an early detection alert. It's not just for species that are rare. This could be for a common species. So, say, for example, garlic mustard has never been found in a certain area before. That's a pretty common species in the state, but maybe hasn't been found in their area. That would trigger a new alert. So you choose an area of interest, like a county, a water body, or looking at. This alert is actually going to trigger a new and old observation. So it's going to trigger
I have done
submitted
this one.
So this alert is really useful if you find the species that are found in a particular area and you be notified whenever is reported for the first time. Again, it's different from the early detection.
I'm thinking of going with this.
Focus on common.
Just kind of keeping this
So you can mute your phone. Wait that.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, sure. If I built too, if you want to add it in.
The example of a new to geography alert would be to say, alert me when any new aquatic plant is reported in Lake Marburg, which is in our county. So again, you kind of are keeping tabs of the species that are being found in this particular water body, and then something new comes along, a reason to use the new to geography alert. Another example for a new to geography alert would be to alert me when any new
I just did it.
in Lancaster County.
Yeah, I think it looks good.
It's when any new aquatic animal is reported in Pymatuning Reservoir. You may alert me when any new terrestrial plant species is reported in Sizerville State Park. So again, these are just a very limited amount of what the capabilities are that you can do these alerts, just kind of giving you a better idea of the possibilities. But there is a lot of a lot of options, and they're a really great way to stay informed when things are then reported to the database, because you will get an alert, the day after it's confirmed. Okay, is there any questions or comments so far?
Yeah, I have a question. Is it possible to get alerts for an area of interest like a hawk or like a shed?
I believe that you can. I like to look at the statistics, but I know that, at least the water body is an option.
Okay.
So I will actually jot that down as a note to myself, and I will double check, because I feel like you can, but I don't want to say for sure. So I will find out for you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah.
There's someone talking on the phone. If you could just mute your line, it would be really appreciated.
You may need to say that again and again until they stop.
No, I think so. So I hear someone talking on the phone. Could you please mute your line? Jim?
How to mute. How do you mute?
There should be a mute button on your phone.
Oh.
Thank you. All right. So let's talk a little bit now about viewing data, specifically on the map. This is going to be really helpful to be able to visualize species distribution statewide, as well as on a more of a local scale. I'm going to show you how to do that. So, viewing capabilities. There's various layers, reference layers that are available in iMap for you to be able to better visualize data. this is kind of a brief overview of what that looks like. We have base layers that include both Google and Bing Maps. Also overlay layers that include county, cooperative weed management areas. We have the HUCs, which are hydrologic unit codes. We have major water bodies. There's natural heritage areas. Again, there's a lot to choose from. Also easily turn on and off observation data. And be categorized under confirmed data, unconfirmed data, and also approximate data. And approximate data is referring to data that doesn't have a precise location. It's more approximate to a certain area. And then we aren't going to talk too much about this because this is more of a basic training. But you do also have the option to turn on and off information for management efforts. Include assessment, survey, treatment, and infestation management information. If you want to be able to have access to that, you'll have to attend an advanced training, which I do have one of those coming up next month in April. I just want to give you some examples of what I mean by these reference layers. So in order to kind of better understand where something might be located within the state, it could be helpful to turn on the county layer, and so that's what this would look like, turning on those counties. We talked a little bit about the HUCs, the hydrologic unit codes. In general, the HUCs are just a way to describe the size of watersheds, and they are, you can have a really big HUC or you can have a really small HUC, and you're going to see that here in a second. And so this is a layer of the HUC 6. Here we have HUC 8, which is a little bit more close in, a little bit smaller. Here's the HUC 12, so very close in, a much better idea of where the watershed is within the state, much smaller. Okay, so again, there's various HUCs you can choose from. There's the cooperative weed management areas, and in Pennsylvania, we do have 5 CWMAs, and 3 of those CWMAs are active. Those are the Lake Erie watershed, the Mahoning, which is kind of in the north central part of the state. Excuse me, and we also have the Southern Laurel Highlands Plant Management Partnership, which is kind of the small dots that you see down in the southwestern corner of the state. Currently inactive are the Juniata, which is the big blob you see kind of in the south central part of the state, and the Delaware River Invasive Plant Partnership, which is the big one on the right-hand side. So we do currently have 5, 3 of which I said are active, and they're a really great way for kind of organizations to combine together on various invasive species efforts, and so that's the purpose of the CWMA. We also have a streams layer. There's a special way to remember when using this layer, you actually zoom in to be close in order to then turn the layer on. And the reason for that is if you were viewing the layer from a state view, like from really far out, you wouldn't be able to see anything. And you really have to zoom in a little bit in order to really see the information. Yes, go ahead.
There's still some interference with the mute button.
Yeah, I know. So whoever's on the phone, that there's some background noise, would you please put your phone on mute? We'd appreciate that.
It cuts your voice totally out when they're talking.
I hope that they get the message.
Yeah, because we can't hear you.
Whoever's on the phone, there is some background noise. If you could please put your phone, that would be really appreciated.
I'm not going to get this. Okay. Anyway.
All right, we'll try my best to speak over whoever is not muting their phone. So map symbology. When you're viewing data in iMap, the following map view is something that you will most definitely see. So how do you interpret this? What does it actually mean? Notice that there's numbers inside of all of these circles and squares, and that's going to represent the amount of observations found at a particular location. The green circles are going to represent precise location. That's been data that's been QC'd by the administrator, that's been reviewed. And we know that it's good, trustworthy data. Orange squares are going to represent non-precise, more approximate information, and that's going to be data that also has been QC'd by the administrator.
It'll be done.
And again, that's going to be, that's going to be non-precise information. That's not going to be information that has like precise GPS coordinates. And then the yellow circles are going to represent unconfirmed data. And this is going to be data that just was, submitted. The administrator didn't have a chance to review it yet. And it could be either precise location data, or it could also be approximate, depending on what it ends up being. Okay, so that's just a very brief overview of how to better understand the data that you will ultimately be looking at on the map. In addition to looking at point data, the map also allows you to view data at a different way. You can look at it via counties. And so here we have data that's been reported for water chestnut, and we can view it just by where the counties are. So rather than cluttering up the map with a bunch of points, you get a good feel for it just by looking at the counties. In order to do that, there's a section on the map called the distribution section. You would choose from either viewing animal, insect, or plant data, and choose that county option. And it's a screenshot that you would ultimately see on your computer. And to understand that a little bit better, if you turn on the county layer, it's going to label those counties for you so that you can understand which county is which. Okay. And then also, just as a note, different shades of blue that you're noticing here in the screenshot, they're representing the amount of observations that have been found in each of those particular counties. The blue color, the higher the amount of observations that have been reported there. So understand, this is not a representation of population density. So if you have a county that's really dark blue, that doesn't mean there's a ton of water chestnut there. It just means we have a lot of observations for it. Maybe there's one water body that has like 20 observations in it. So it really depends on the amount of observations that were given, but it does not represent population density. This is a similar screenshot, but just a little bit different. In addition to viewing county-level data, you can also view data via a watershed. And this is really important for folks that are doing work specifically with aquatic and so again, you would do very similar. You would locate that distribution section on the map. You would whether you want to look at an animal, an insect, or a plant, and then click on the watershed button. This example here that I'm showing you is for distribution of zebra mussel in Pennsylvania. This is not representing the population density, and this is also not representing, necessarily accurate field data. This is based on data that we have received to our database. There might be other places out there that zebra mussel has been found, and we just don't have that data yet. Just keep that in mind that we are a growing database, and as we get more information, it's going to help to make our map that much more accurate. Okay. So I do want to go through an example of how you would use the map to search for a specific species and the locations for that species. And my example is going to be using purple loosestrife. So from the map, you're going to type in that name, either the common name or the scientific name, in the top search bar. And right next to it, you're going to click on the magnifying glass. And that's going to allow you to search the map for what it is that you're looking for. And then once you do that, you're going to see that there's data that appears. And you'll notice that it's not just Pennsylvania data that shows up. Because we're surrounded by other IMAP states, including New York and Virginia, for that species is also going to show up as well. And so you can kind of use that for your purposes. If there's something that's near a state line and managing this species, it's probably really important for you to know that it is that close by, and that's something to keep in mind. So again, you can view that information by using that county tool that we talked about just a little bit ago in the distribution section. So it highlights those counties that are being impacted, and it really draws it out a little bit and better. Again, you can turn on additional reference layers depending on your purposes. If you're a major within a CWMA, turning on the CWMA layer is really important. The natural heritage layer that we have. Again, lots of NHAs across the state representing places where rare and endangered species are being found at, as well as their habitat. So if you're managing an area that's near an NHA, you know about that, and you probably want to keep that in mind to be able to protect that area and get rid of the species that are nearby it. The managed areas layer, so you'll see the Allegheny National Forest up there in the north, northwestern corner, as well as a bunch of other forested areas within the state. So that gives you a better idea of where those are located. And it gets back to that county layer. So just keep in mind that viewing the data on the map is not just about looking at the point data, but using those reference layers to your advantage to better understand the data that's being represented. I also want to talk about dynamic data viewing. Again, I'm showing you this because I'm not giving you a live demonstration from the database itself, so I want to show you how this works. So you're in the map, and kind of do a little bit more than just view the point data from a statewide view. This is for water chestnut. So currently, these are all the places where water chestnut has been found in Pennsylvania, but this map isn't as helpful as it could be just by itself. So turn on the county layers, and I'm going to use that distribution information to get a better understanding of which counties are impacted. But a little bit more than that. You can zoom in on the map and really see, where those places are that water chestnut is being found at. And so go back again to the slide. Notice that in the Bucks-Montgomery County area, you see circles that have numbers like 8, 9, and 10 in them. And when I zoom in, you'll notice that those numbers break apart. And that's because you're zooming in on the map and getting closer and closer to those observations. Okay? And so directly from the map, you can click on any one of those circles, and it's going to bring up the record details for each one of those. If you look in that box on the left-hand side where it says ID, if you click on ID, you can bring up each one of those records and view the record detail in its, in its entirety. And so you can view data directly from the map, or you can really dig in and look at the details depending on what you want to do. Is there any questions on any of that? Okay. So we're going to talk about data querying tools and how to look for specific data. So I do want to talk about the ability to view data in different formats in IMAP, and that's going to include the map, the table, and our report capability. And we've talked a lot about the map so far, but I do just want to reiterate some things here. So this is going to allow you to really easily view data that's been confirmed, approximate, or has not been reviewed yet and is still unconfirmed, with the ability to really visualize exactly where that data is being found within the state. Just note, the approximate data, which is the data you're seeing there with the orange squares, can be mapped according to a bunch of different mapping understandings, I guess you could say. So you can map approximate data so that it's approximate to a county. You can a little bit further say it's approximate to a rural municipality, a section or a particular site, a town or a township. If it's an aquatic species, maybe it's approximate to a water body. Or if it's even more detailed, you can do a custom approximation. So just understand that, especially with approximate data, you really want to get a better feel for where that's actually being mapped to. So if it's mapped to a county, it's really important to know. And so the way you would figure that out is you would open up that record and look in the details of that record to see where it's been mapped to. Keep that in mind. Table view is going to be a very easy way to see total number of records. So if you look up on the right-hand side, you see that there's a total of 852 records in this particular screenshot here. And just like the map, you can click on any one of these rows of data, and you can bring up the record details directly from the table. And so our report format. This is a really great way to get a better understanding of a particular set of data, because it's going to break it down by various categories. And so I have an example here. If you look in the lower right corner, a screenshot of what the report actually looked like, but it's really boring, and so that's why I put a really pretty picture on here instead of the Mahoning State Park, and that's what the report is talking about. So the example of the report is saying that in 2016, here's all the observations that were being reported within the Mahoning Cooperative Weed Management Area. And by doing that particular query and doing it in a report, you can find out that a total of 852 observations were reported within that CWMA, and that's going to impact 4 counties. But farther, figure out that of those 852 observations, that was accounting for 29 individual species, that was observed by 14 users, and that was part of 4 different projects within the iMap program. This information might not be helpful to you, but some might, and so to know that the report is the way to do that, to get that information. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into how you can conduct some data analysis by doing custom queries with our custom observation query tool. So say you're looking for a particular species and all of its locations within the state. Do that by looking at the map, which we did that not too long ago. We also do it with a custom query. And so an example here is you would say, show me all the reported data for purple loosestrife in Pennsylvania. I want to know those different locations where it's been found at. And so we would do that is if you click on Custom Observation Query from the main page, and go to the section for species, and use your species. So you would say, I'm looking for a plant. Specifically, I'm looking for purple loosestrife, so you can either choose the common name or use the scientific name. There you can choose to view your data in one of those 3 options, the map, the table, or report. So you can see in the screenshot, we've obviously chosen to view that in a map format to get a better understanding of where all that data has been found within the state. If you choose to view it in a report, you know that there's been a total of 149 observations for loosestrife. From the observations, there has been 25 impacted counties and 16 different organizations that have submitted that data. Okay. Again, it might be really helpful for you to get that very specific information, or maybe it's just enough for you to kind of get a better understanding of where it is by looking at the map. There are various options available depending on your specific needs. So, an example for using the query is, say you're a land manager and you want to know all the different species that have been found in a particular area that you are in charge of managing. Find this data. The example I'm providing here is to say, show me all the data that's been reported for species found within the Mahoning CWMA. So to do that, you would open up your custom query tool, go to the geography section and say, I'm interested in CWMA specifically. Select the specific CWMA. So for this one, we're interested in the Mahoning one. Again, you could choose to view your data in either the map, the table, or report. So in the map, you can see all the data is showing up within the Mahoning area. I would look at that data in a report. I would see that there's a total of 878 observations that have been reported. There's 29 species that have been reported. And then I can actually see, I'm not showing it to you here on this page, but you can actually see each and every one of those 29 species that's been reported. And just to give you a list of what that includes, That includes both terrestrial and aquatic plants. There's been an invasive insect that's been found, as well as 2 aquatic animals. Again, all listed out individually in the report itself, so that if that's important to you and you want to get a better understanding of what's been found in the area that you are in charge of managing, the report is going to be your best friend in this case. Here's another example. Say last year in 2016, you partner with 2 local organizations to gather data on invasives, and now you want to know how much of that data has been reported to IMAP and by which organization they found that data. So it's a very specific query, but you can very easily find that information in IMAP. And so here's my example. They show me all the reported data that's been submitted. The Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy, Allegheny County Conservation District, and the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy. I want to know all the data that they had input last year. Access your query tool, go to the organization section and select those 3 different organizations that you're interested in. And because we're only interested in data that was submitted in 2016, you go to the date observed range and say January 1, December 31st as your start and your end dates. Again, choose to view that data in either the map, the table, or a report. You can see in the map view that there's been data found across various parts of western Pennsylvania. And in the report, we can know that there is a total of 240 observations, accounting for 29 species and 20 different users, which you would be able to know which organization they are affiliated with. Point out that this particular query, you can also do that if you had created a project. For example, if you created a project that was affiliated with those 3 organizations and the data that they found all of last year, you query for that project and bring up this exact same data, but it's just done a different way. So again, keep in mind those projects, they really are a great tool because it's an easy way to query for a specific data set. An example of how to use this query tool, say you're a watershed specialist and you're working for a local county conservation district, and you want to know which invasive species have been found in a particular lake that's known for its recreational usage, because ultimately you probably want to do treatment efforts to make sure that the lake can continue to be used for its recreation. It would be to show me all the data that's been reported in a particular lake. So I chose Lake Marburg, which is in York County. In order to perform that query, again, you're going to access your query tool from the main page, go to Geography section and choose Water Body, and select a specific water body that you're interested in. And so we're going to choose Lake Marburg. Again, then you can choose to view your data in the map, or report. So here in the map, we can see there's been a lot of data that's been reported in Lake Marburg, and that account for a total of 189 observations, but a total of 3 species. So this map can be a little misleading, and so the report really shows you, exactly which species, how many of each species. The majority of this data is actually for hydrilla, and not so much for the other 2, which is Eurasian water milfoil and involved crayfish. But again, it gives you an understanding of what parts of the lake have these invasives, or at least did have these invasives. And the report really helps to analyze which species there is, how many of them, and so on and so forth. Okay, any questions about the custom query tool? All right, keep moving along. So I do want to talk a little bit more, not so much about the iMap program, but more so some species that you all should try to be on the lookout for as much as possible. And these are what we call our early detection and priority species. These are ones that are important to know about, so that if you find them, you know to report them as soon as possible. So what early detection species? The species that is newly established in Pennsylvania, or it could be a species that's thought to be in Pennsylvania but it's not well documented, or a species that's not found in Pennsylvania at all, but it's expected to arrive soon based on professional judgment. So, and again, all of these species would be at least moderately invasive. And so an example here is rusty crayfish. Actually, rusty crayfish is not an early detection species. I'm not sure why that's in here. I take that back. I'm going to show you some other early detection species. Sorry for the confusion there. So an example is this species is called alligator weed. And this one, as we've talked about, this one is not in Pennsylvania, so it's going to be on the lookout for in case you do find it. It alters ecosystem processes such as water flow, levels of dissolved oxygen, and rates of sedimentation. Severely impact community structure and composition, and because it creates a dense layer due to the way that it forms in its aquatic habitats, it will outcompete other species for light, mostly of the native species that we don't want to have outcompeted. So where is it now? So it is found in a bunch of different parts of the country, and it's not in Pennsylvania. It is nearby. It's been found in Virginia, North Carolina, and Kentucky. So again, this one is pretty close, and it definitely has the opportunity to come into Pennsylvania. And if it's found, we definitely want to know about it. Sending a report to IMAP is a good thing to do because that will then be transferred over to the appropriate people who would want to know about it and be able to take action. So another example of an early detection species is golden mussel. This one is something that will threaten native biodiversity by suffocating and starving out our native bivalves and fouling in water systems. So this species is not actually in North America at present. It's been found in parts of Argentina, Bolivia, Uruguay, and Brazil, as well as parts of Asia. But species could come into North America. We have had other species such as zebra and quagga mussel that come in the ballast of ships. They're transferred, by other means. And so it's one that just because it's not even in the that it's not one we shouldn't have on our radar. Okay? So this one, again, not in North America, but it could come in, and if found, we really want to know about it. Here's another example of an early detection species. This is called a nutria. So it can be called a coipu. It's a lot like a beaver, but it's not quite the same thing. It destroys vegetation and habitat in wetlands by overgrazing those sites. This one has been in various parts of North America, and specifically on the eastern seaboard, it's been found in New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina, and also in Canada, it's been found in Ontario. So again, this is one that is fairly close to Pennsylvania, and we want to keep it out of our state if we can, but if it is found, we want to make sure that a report is sent and the appropriate action can be taken to try to get rid of it if found. The last example I'll show you guys of an early detection species is this particular fish. It's called a bullseye snakehead. And so this one has the potential to impact a lot of our native fish species as well as crustaceans. And this, even though it's not near Pennsylvania, it's established in Florida. Again, it's one to have on your radar. If it is found, we really want to know about it. We have another type of snakehead that is in Pennsylvania currently called the northern snakehead. There's actually a few different species of snakehead, but they are all really bad, and any type of snakehead, you want to report it if you find it. But so far, this one in particular, the bullseye, has not been found in Pennsylvania. The story of species that I want to highlight is what we call our high priority species. And priority species is one that's been found in Pennsylvania, but it's not widespread yet. So essentially, it's been found in less than a third of our counties, and it's considered to be at least moderately invasive. So examples of species that are considered to be high priority. So this one called common frogbit. It's an aquatic species that forms large, dense, free-floating mass, which will limit light penetration vegetation as well as nutrients. It's going to reduce the growth of native species that are submerged, the water column in shallow areas, which will strongly affect much of the native aquatic life in a very negative way. So in Pennsylvania, there's only a handful of reports for this species, and that's been found in the northern portion of Warren County, right along the New York border, specifically in State Game Lands 282. As I know, this particular species has only been reported in the IMAP database. I checked some other databases yesterday just to make sure. I don't see it in them. And so, again, it's really important to document these findings because, you know, there's a way to document it right away, whereas some of these other databases that are out there, it might take a little bit longer to have that information go in and show up. So again, this one to look out for, and I don't know of any management programs that are happening right now, but it's one that, as far as I'm concerned, because it's so rare, it's one that we could do something about and really get rid of it completely if there's some effort and some funding there to do so. So frogbit, pretty rare in Pennsylvania. Another high priority species, this is a crustacean called spiral crayfish. It competes with and displaces native fish and other crayfish. It also reduces snail, macroinvertebrate, and macrophyte abundance and biodiversity. Where is it now? It's found in several watersheds that are located along the Pennsylvania and the Maryland border, and you can see there in that lower right-hand corner screenshot that it is partly in Pennsylvania. Not much yet, but again, you know, we want to keep it that way, and if there's any way to try to prevent its spread, you know, it would be really great. So this is a plant. This species is called European swallowwort. And also, again, it's pretty rare in our state right now. It forms dense monocultures, which will displace the native vegetation, alters habitats, and reduces our native biodiversity. It threatens rare and vulnerable ecosystems in the lower Great Lakes Basin. So where is it now? According to the Biota of North America program, the European swallowwort has been found in Cumberland, York, Lancaster, and Chester counties, so all in that southeastern part of our state. Not widespread yet, and hopefully it doesn't get to spread too much more. The species is one that you have seen in the news over the past few years or so. This one is called spotted lanternfly. So it's an insect that has the potential to greatly impact the culture or grape industry, tree fruit, plant nursery, and also timber industries. And so, you know, it really poses a significant ecological threat to these industries, which many of them, even some of them, are worth millions or even billions of dollars. And so, again, a really big deal. We want to try to stop this thing in its tracks before it gets any farther. So, as with all of these species, and especially ones that really, you know, we feel an impact economically, early detection is vital in order to effectively control this species. So where is it now? Currently, there is some quarantined areas in Pennsylvania that exist in Berks, Bucks, Chester High, Northampton, and Montgomery counties. So that southeastern part of the state is where this one is at right now. Any questions about any of those species? So I'm going to wrap things up and talk just a little bit about the new Pennsylvania iMapInvasives website that was just launched less than a year ago, and just kind of highlight some things that are available on there. But certainly there's a lot more on there that I'm not going to talk about today. You guys, I'm encouraging you to go check it out in your spare time. There's a section on our website called Be on the Lookout, and it's a place where you can go and learn about what species to essentially be on the lookout for. These are ones that are not yet in Pennsylvania, but they could arrive at any time. So if you find one of these species, then please report your findings to IMAP. There's some species in there, that, like this one in particular, the Asian longhorn beetle. This one's not in Pennsylvania, and I really hope it never gets here. It has the ability to completely wipe out our forest. Goes after a lot of different hardwood tree species, and it's not one that we want. And so again, if you find any of these, report your sightings, and the appropriate people will be contacted to ensure that something is done. Our track species section is a way for you to get a better understanding of all the different species that we track, which I mentioned before, we currently track over 300 species in our database. And we have these various categories broken down in the following categories here. So early detection and high priority species. We also have a category for noxious weeds, and that's going to include noxious weeds that are both specific to Pennsylvania as well as federal noxious weeds. We also have a list of Fish and Boat Commission's banned species, and they're all going to be aquatic related, various fish and the mussels in there. I'm not remembering everything, but those are all banned by the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. There's also categories for terrestrial, aquatic, and wetland plants. We also have mammals, fish, reptiles, invertebrates, diatoms, and algae. So we track a variety of species. You'll notice we don't have a category on here for diseases. We don't track things like oak wilt or blight or anything like that. And that may change down the road, but right now we're really focused on species in particular and not so much diseases or even like pathogens. Our categories that we have. And also we have a section of our website called the Gallery of Invaders. And this is a really cool part of the website because it lets you learn more about specific invasive species. You can see a photo of what they look like. And also, you know, like how to identify them. You can learn what they might look similar to, and all sorts of really great information. So we have a few categories that list out those species, and that includes aquatic and facultative plants, vertebrates, fish, reptiles, pathogens, and algae. Again, this is a little bit separate from the species that we track, because you'll notice there's pathogens here as a category. But this is a way for you to become a little bit more familiar with some invasive species that are known to occur here in Pennsylvania. And last but not least, there is a category on the site for our newsletters. And this is something that we do every quarter, so we release 4 newsletters per year. And it's a way to become more familiar with the tools that are available in iMap, and also a way for you to understand how various people across Pennsylvania are using the iMapInvasives database for specific purposes, which ultimately, hopefully, will benefit all of our users. And that's something that comes out 4 times a year. You can always receive you can receive the newsletter by signing up to be a registered user of the database, but you can also access these archived newsletters as well right from our website. I almost forgot. I have one more slide to show you guys. So we do have information on reference guides and frequently asked questions. So a lot of stuff that we talked about today, we kind of had to go through fairly quickly. So if you have any follow-up questions or you want to know how to do something that you didn't quite catch today, I would encourage you to check out these 2 different sections. So, you know, the frequently asked questions are going to hopefully answer some of your things that you might wonder how the database works or how it operates. And so the reference guide section is going to do, you know, how to create your observation records, how to do those various querying capabilities that I showed you with the custom query tool. So again, know that these are resources that are available, and they are right on our website. They're very easy to get to. So I want to put a plug in for the next training that's coming up in April. That's going to be an advanced training. And so in order to attend that, you'll need to have attended either training today or have watched our video training that we have available. And that training is going to talk about learning how to create assessment, survey, treatment, and infestation management data, as well as some more advanced querying capabilities. So if you're interested in registering to attend, there is an option to do that right on our website. I think some of you on this call have actually already registered to attend that, so that's great. And I've mentioned this several times, but we do have our YouTube video that's available website, which will show you how to create an observation record. I also have the option that you can request a custom training. So we do schedule in-person trainings for people that have an interest in doing that for their organization. I've also done special webinar trainings for folks that might have specific questions about the database and how to use it. So that's also an option if you are interested in doing more of a customized training. And that is all I have. So I'm going to open it up. We're finishing a little bit early, but I do want to open it up to any questions or comments that you guys have right now.
This is Rocky Gleason.
Sure.
I have a question. How are species added to the list? If I find something I think should be added to the list, how's that done?
So the way the species are added to our list is I usually get an email from a specific user, and they say, I'm looking for this species in your list, and I don't see it. And so what I'll do is I will then go in and actually add that species myself. That's an administrative capability. But what I do before I actually add that species in a track species, I want to ensure that it actually really is invasive. And I say that because species are more like a nuisance species and not actually a technically invasive species. So all the species that we track in IMAP have to meet the criteria that they are non-native, and they also either cause harm to the environment, the economy, or human health. They have to meet that criteria, and if they don't, they're not a species that we're going to track in the IMAP program. So if there is a species that you'd like to report on and don't see it in our list, then just go ahead and send me an email, and I will make sure to have that added in if it is a, really an invasive species. Is there other questions or comments that anyone has?
Amy?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Cheryl Nolan. I just wanted to say that I'm extremely impressed with this tool. See a lot of really great uses for it. And I appreciate all the work you did on it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that feedback. Oh, go ahead.
John Wallace at Millersville. First of all, thank you very much for hosting this, and the students got a great deal out of it. I think they have an average 50 pages of notes. But they did have a question. The desire to log these species, but not do anything about them. In other words, any kind of management or control.
Right. So the IMAP network as a whole, not just Pennsylvania, but all those other states in that province, the idea behind the IMAP database is able to first track this information, then allow more resource professionals and other folks that are out doing those treatment efforts to be able to prioritize and better understand where to focus their efforts to then go and take action and really do something about these species. But you can do that effectively if you first don't have the data together all in one place. And the really cool thing about the IMAP program is we're getting data from a varied amount of sources. You know, it's not just coming from state agencies, it's not just coming from, you know, consultants or whomever, it's coming from all these different groups. And that really makes the data that much more valuable, because you might have a citizen scientist that finds another finding of common frog bed in a county where it's never been found before. And if we only receive data from an agency, we would never get that information. And that would be really important information to know about. And again, I will reference the fact that all of our data is QC'd before we confirm it, because when we get data from someone that we don't know or don't know their ID skills, it's really important to know that this data can be trusted, so that then I can go to someone that works for a state agency and I say, hey, we had this brand new, you know, sighting for this rare species I think you should know about. So a long-winded answer to your question, but yes, the ultimate goal behind the program is so that treatment, survey, and all those types of efforts can be done more effectively.
Yeah, that actually, I just had a little small follow-up, and I have a student has a question to ask. So yeah, I get all that, and it's an awesome resource. Follow-up, for example, after a couple of years, let's say there are some agencies or there are some groups that do go out and try to control some of these things, especially in areas that are, or attacks that are rare. Once those managers or whomever notice these things and perhaps go out and remove them, is there any follow-up to see if, in fact, they've been removed and that dot can be removed from that location?
That is a very good question, and I will say that even though that's not a capability that we have in IMAP at present, it's something that the network as a whole has very much discussed in length, that we see a need to do that, because obviously some of these species we look up might actually be there anymore. Number one, maybe because it was reported a really long time ago and it just has kind of naturally gone away, or it's been treated or something like that. So that's something that we are hoping to incorporate into the system. And there's always changes and updates that are being made to the system all the time. And so that would potentially be one of those updates that we make. And the only caveat with all of that is that the update that we make has to be agreed on by the entire network. So just because Pennsylvania wants it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Like, everybody in the network has to say, yes, this is important to do, which really that is one that a lot of people have agreed on, which is good. But the other part to it is funding. And we always have to be able to come up with funding to do some of these additional enhancements, because, you know, the people on the back end of IMAP who are creating these things, you know, they don't do it for free. And so we always need to, every year, kind of prioritize which enhancements we make and where our network's funding is directed to. So, again, a long-winded answer to your question, but it is something that we are very interested in pursuing, and I hope that very soon that will be something that's available.
Like I think on what you were saying before, in terms of, say, for example, this east and west, say, for example, I'm out fishing, I catch a snakehead, take care of it, and in the comment section, kill snakehead. Boom. Information that would be, I mean, it's not as though taking the observation doesn't mean you action, you do not take action against what you're observing. Or is that the expectation that you're not supposed to be bring up on your discovering are invasive? So
I think I'm going to answer your question in a few ways, maybe. Okay. So if you found a snakehead and you killed it, I still want to know about it. Right. Because just because it's dead probably doesn't mean that there's not other live snakeheads in that same water body that you found it at. And even if there isn't, we at least know that it was there at that particular time. Sort of answer your question.
Right. Because I think part of what the students were suggesting was that this isn't just evil. If you're invasive and you remove it, you would just comment on the fact fact that you've removed it, but it was
Right.
observed.
Right, and of course that would be something that for certain species, they're red flags to me. So like a snakehead, you know, I'm going to know about that. I'm going to say that. I need to be in touch with so-and-so at the Fish and Boat Commission. He probably wants to know about this. And actually, in reference to our email alerts, folks at the Fish and Boat Commission do have alerts set up. So as soon as that would go in and get confirmed, that would then go right to them and notified as soon as possible. The other thing that is really great about IMAP is that email alert system allows that flow of communication to happen. So like if I don't have, you know, I'm really busy one day and I don't have the time to send them an email, that alert's going to do it for me. But whenever I can, I try to do, you know, like an email, like as soon as possible. To say, by the way, we just got this report. Did you know about it? And a perfect example of that, a few weeks ago, I got some reports from someone that reported New Zealand mud snail in Center County, and that's a really rare species in Pennsylvania. It's only been found in the State College area as well as Erie. So it was found in State College about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was found at a certain spot, and now it's been found in places both up and downstream of that area. And even though it's still kind of all contained, it was never documented that it really was upstream and downstream. And this person's observations were really critical in saying, yeah, it really has distributed. And so I was emailing like folks at, you know, DEP, at Fish and Boat, like, oh my gosh, it was like crazy email. And I got a lot of people that were like, yeah, this is really great information. Thank you for letting me know. And that was a citizen scientist. That's not someone that worked for an agency. So again, these are, you know, this is a really great way to capture really important information that might not get put out there any other way. So.
My name's Adam. I'm from Millersville University. My question is kind of a two-part question involving the photos. For a specimen like Tree of Heaven, they usually get larger in size, and if there are no smaller specimen around, is there like a specific way you'd want to take a picture of that to get the leaves, or just kind of best shot? And then in addition to that, if you see a mammal like the nutria, you can't take a picture of it, do you still want us to report it then? If you can, like, off your knowledge that it is a nutria?
Okay, so good questions. First question with the Tree of Heaven. I would just say do your best. You know, take those close-up of the bark. The bark of Tree of Heaven is very distinctive. Get a photo if you can, you know, if possible, of the leaf, the underside of the leaf. Get a photo far away of the whole tree. Just do the best you can. And if you're with someone that considers themselves an expert in knowing, you know, this is definitely Tree of Heaven, then include that in the comments of your observation. Say, so-and-so is, you know, an expert. You can, you know, call and ask or whatever. You know, it really helps me because part of what I do is I like to develop relationships with people who are experts in, you know, certain categories of species. And so, you know, if you know someone who's an expert in that and that'll help me, then that's always a good thing to mention. As far as your second question with the nutria, you weren't actually able to get a photo of it. It's going to be a little bit harder to confirm that data unless, of course, you are or with an expert. And I know that you know what a nutria looks like. It was definitely that. So if there isn't a photo, then you almost have to be an expert for that data to be confirmed in iMap. You're welcome. Is there questions or comments? We still have some time left. I'm going to wrap things up. Again, I'm really grateful for all of you guys to attend today's training. I did record the training, and so I'm going to be posting this on the Pennsylvania IMAP website under our training section. So if you want to go back and reference this training from today, you will be able to do that. And folks that do not currently have an IMAP login account already, I will be sure to create one for you, and I will send out your login credentials hopefully by the end of today. If not, then sometime tomorrow. So again, if you do any follow-up questions that you weren't able to ask today, please feel free to reach out to me via phone, email. I'm always happy to hear from you, answer your questions. So thank you guys so very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.